before my internet cut out, I think you said that you have family in Israel or that you were from Israel. I couldn't hear.
I'm in the UK now, but I am originally Israeli. I do have family still in Israel, though I was just saying that it's been a very rough week.
Yeah. Um. Okay. So here's some like questions. So like I I have a view of like the Israeli Palestine conflict that basically boils down to um, there was there was like the British Mandate in 1948. They kind of fucked up with some of the drawing of borders. Britain overpromised, gave everyone promises that they could not keep because the promises were kind of contradictory, which is basically what led to the partition between Palestine and Israel. It was a whole thing. Um, and the Arabs did not like the fact that the Israelis took over in those areas. They tried to take it back. Uh, they did not succeed. They tried it again. They did not succeed the second time either. That led to essentially like uh, the occupation of both Gaza and the West Bank. Um, you know, there's probably freedom fighters there for decades. Didn't work out super good for the Palestinians. Didn't work out good for the Israelis because of now they fucking hate each other, and both have reasons to hate each other. Um, here's the question for you: Are you like a? It seems based off of the things that you were saying in chat that you're like big Israel defender.
I'll, I mean, I'm relatively, I would consider myself objective. Like I
Mm-hmm.
try to be objective. I'll call out things that I don't think are right, but I guess I would defend Israel in a lot of the cases you may bring up. But if it's something I disagree with, I'll just say that I don't agree with it.
Okay, gotcha. So I, I feel like one of the things that I have an issue with, and both sides of this equation do this, is like they want to point out the atrocities of the other side, but then they either downplay or just like disavow the issues of their side, which is not cool. Very not poggers, right?
Well,
Um,
considering you spent the entire time saying some lefties have gone too far, I can appreciate that sentiment.
yeah, I think that it basically boils down to there are a good number of people, especially people who are analysts or who have looked very deeply into this issue, that have a very hyper nuanced take, understand why both groups hate each other, right? Understand why these attacks happened, but still hardcore um, denounce Hamas, right? Um, Whereas like people who are more ardent defenders, I won't say that you're like going to defend literally everything that Israel does, but like people who are more ardent defenders of Israel will they'll kind of take the well, that does happen, but they're trying to murder us line. Like where on the like spectrum of I totally support Palestine and all of Hamas actions because fuck colonial rule, to IDF rules like let's march children in front of our tanks as human shields, that's based because fuck them. Like where are you on that spectrum?
Well, I think I can speak for most secular Israelis that to say that we would rather not have any conflicts at all. I know that's easy for us to say because we go to work, we come home, we pay our mortgages, we have families, and I think obviously to some degree even people living in Gaza would just like to do the same habits that we do day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I did serve in the army. I did see what was going on, and the it's not really like that much of a gray area to some degree. Again, there are some faults, and I don't think Israel is perfect, or certainly not in the last some odd years, and certainly not certain settler groups. I wouldn't say. In fact, I would say they're quite problematic. But I don't think there's a moral equivalent that I really need to defend in this case.
Sure. I I I feel like at one point I was more on the Palestinian liberation side when I was a lefty. But then when I actually looked into it like at all, it became very gray for me. And now after looking into it a little bit more, there's still a lot of gray area there, but not as much as people like I feel like Vosh, if you've seen any of his coverage, he has like it's a gray area, but Israel does more wrong than Palestinians, and and Hamas should be not be the representative of Palestinians like broadly. So he's
Well,
yeah,
Hamas and Fatah have like a conflict between them. Hamas is in Gaza. I would say pretty strong support from the locals, especially if they're religious. If they're not religious, then if the people in Gaza are not so religious, or like they want to just relax and smoke weed or something, they'll find it very difficult in Gaza. Gaza is quite theocratic.
mm,
On the West Bank side, it's the PLO, it's Mahmoud Abbas. They don't get along with Hamas at all. They have internal fights when they meet in the street and stuff like that. So in terms of like, let's say, if we were to discuss a peace plan, let's say, or anyone would, like, there's not really one person to sit down, because who actually speaks for the Palestinian people, and to some degree, like you started the conversation about the history of it. So if you look at the map, like the Israeli map, the West Bank is very close to Jordan, and the Palestinians there, or the Arabs there, are from that side, or from Jordan.
yeah.
And Gaza is from the Egypt side, and the Palestinians there are mostly Egyptian. So back like in 1948, in 1948 terms, like Gaza would have been either part of Egypt wholesale or just administered by Egypt. I'm not exactly clear, but they were, like, from our point of view, they were part of Egypt. And then Jordan had like a big chunk of the West Bank that was just part of their country, including some parts of Jerusalem. And that's really the separation, and they don't seem to meet eye to eye anymore.
So there's a big separation in the kind of like ideals and goals of people on the West Bank and people in Gaza.
I mean, if Hamas does a terror attack, I don't think the people in the West Bank would condemn it. But
Right.
they do have, like, groups vying for power. They do fight each other.
Yeah. Do you think that when it comes to people bringing up or like trying to both sides it, you said that it's for you as someone who served in the military, it is a lot less gray than it is black and white. Why do you say that?
I mean, I don't. So from our point of view, Israelis are. You can either look at it one of two ways. Either we're native to Israel, or we conquered Israel in 1967. So the most up-to-date take is that there was a massive war between 5 countries against Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had, like, Egypt, which I mentioned, controlled Gaza, and you had Jordan, you had Lebanon, and you had Syria, and I think one more I forget. But basically, the short story is that in that war, Israel won and they pushed everyone back. So Israel had pushed all the way up to Beirut in the north, and they took part of southern Lebanon till like 2001, I think. And then the Jordanian side were pushed back, and they took control of, where the map is now. In Syria side, they took the Golan Heights, which Israel still keeps, even though no religious person claims this is part of Israel. It's just strategically a high, like a high ground.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of the south, Israel took over where Gaza is now. And from our point of view, because we conquered the armies that were attacking us, bearing in mind that we see Gaza as Egyptians and the West Bank as Jordanians, we see that as the reason why we are justified in holding the land of Israel. Over time, how we got to today is there was an idea in 1963, sorry, not an idea. In 1963, Arafat came and established the PLO. Up until that point, there wasn't a separation between the people there, like either from Jordan or from Egypt. There became separation where these are Palestinians native of the land of Israel. Up until 1963, that was not a concept.
Mm-hmm.
Afterwards, it became a concept, and over time and up to the Oslo Accords, during the Oslo Accords, there was a heightened idea that there should be a land for peace approach to dealing with the Palestinians. Like they don't want to have anything to do with Israel. They don't want to integrate. They should have their own land. And then in 2005, Israel left Gaza like fully out. Like they just uprooted settlers, they uprooted religious people. And bear in mind, this was a very difficult time because settlers have the belief that land of Israel is very holy. So there was lots of internal conflicts between secular Israelis and religious Israelis around 2005. So we moved out, but basically, in terms of like mistreating, let's say in the case of Gaza, mistreating the people of Gaza, I don't follow exactly what the claim is.
So
I mean,
the
you
claim,
can,
yeah, I can explain
yeah.
some of it too. I don't know the extreme intricacies of all the problems, but a short list is they have so many restrictions and we can say that this is as a result of there being terrorist activities there, but the restrictions like on the amount of concrete that you can import into Gaza will never be enough to build like water salination plants, right? Like Hassan brought that up earlier today. So only 10% of Gazans actually have clean water. They actually don't have the ability to build any water treatment plants as a result of restrictions put on them by Israel. Now, this is probably because if you import a bunch of concrete, then people might build up either, like military bunkers or, like be able to do something with those bombs that are helpful to terrorist activities. So like I can understand where the idea comes from, but the effect on the civilians is pretty unbelievably harsh. I believe that
well, let me
go ahead.
Let me answer to that point. So I'm not aware of this restriction. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I've never heard of it.
It's new to me today too.
Inside Gaza, I have seen large concrete multi-story buildings erected. So I'm not sure if they're reusing what they already have, but there are obviously now you can see with the bombings of buildings, these are large multi-story buildings. I'm assuming some of it is made of concrete.
Right,
so I'm not exactly sure now, but bear in mind,
yeah.
So as of now, or has been for a few decades, Gaza gets its water, electricity, and let's put medical aside, the water and electricity from Israel. So Israel purifies it and gives to them electricity they get from Israel. They can get medical services outside of Gaza if like they have to cross the border, but they can for free. Yeah, it is blockaded, but on a normal like day to day, there are thousands of people in Gaza leaving Gaza to work in Israel, typically in agriculture, and then coming back, or they leave for a few days and then come back like I don't know, for a season or something, and come back with some money. But but also bear in mind, in terms of saying it's blockaded, Gaza has a border with Egypt. And if they want to get supplies from Egypt or materials from Egypt, they can do that.
I don't know the like intricacies of that, but I also think that Egypt doesn't have like uh they're they're not like in the business of helping Gazans out, right? That's my
Well,
understanding.
look,
Like
so,
they closed
well, I
the
mean,
border to them for this.
but to some degree, this is like, so how can I put, how can I say, if Israel is if Israel is blamed for what's happening to the people in Gaza, bearing in mind that Gaza is like a quasi state, like Israel doesn't do anything inside. I mean, obviously now with the insurrection, but normally like Gaza has its own elections, its own laws, its own police, its own judges, and it has a border with Egypt, which a lot of the people in Gaza are from Egypt. So if like they have a particular relationship, they want to bring stuff in, they do bring weapons in from Egypt. They do have tunnels, no, sorry, not tunnels. They do have infrastructure that they can use to bring water into Gaza, like in the form of tunnels. But instead, they use it to smuggle. Hamas specifically is to smuggle terrorists. So if
Well, don't they
Egypt
also have
treats
restrictions on how deep they can tunnel? They have,
inside
like
Gaza,
yeah, I think
I'm
that
not aware.
they're not allowed to.
Look, maybe
Oh yeah, go ahead.
it's possible that you can come up with a restriction that I'm unfamiliar with, but like on the whole, Gaza is theirs. Like Israel doesn't come in unless it's like, a big deal. Isn't doesn't normally visit Gaza at all.
Gotcha. Maybe I need to look more into what's going on in Gaza because I thought that I knew more about Gaza than I did the West Bank, but maybe it's the opposite.
But bear in mind, Gaza has a beach, right? They have very lovely hotels at the beachside, very lovely hotels. There's a whole section of Gaza with very rich people. You can see the Gaza, like if there's a hashtag, I think in Twitter called the Gaza that I didn't know or something like that, or Gaza that you don't see. And they're obviously poor areas, but they're very rich areas as well.
And is it usually when there are retaliatory strikes from Israel, is it usually just into the poorer areas?
It's usually just in buildings that Hamas occupies to do something.
So it's not like restricted to like, or it's not like normally they just bomb the poorer areas. It's just like whatever is wherever Hamas is.
Well, look, I think it's wherever Hamas is, because bear in
Okay.
mind those missiles are expensive, so they
I
won't
mean,
just
of
do it
course.
willy-nilly.
That's why I was trying to explain earlier, like the idea that they're going to like shoot a $3 million, $10 million fucking missile to take out one Hamas militant who isn't even high up on the chain is insane to me. I don't think that that's happening. Let me see. Do you think that of the how about this? In lieu of me having like specific examples, what restrictions, what sort of actions from Israel do you think are actually completely unjustified? What do you think are unnecessary actions that the IDF or the government of Israel does towards Palestinians that is unwarranted and might lead to like these kinds of conflicts sparking up?
Well, let's set aside the West Bank for a second, because I think there could be some points there that
The settlements and all that.
with regards to settlements and with regards to conflicts there, and there's always these flare-ups around who owns a building in Jerusalem. Can you
Yeah.
find out the records from the Ottoman Empire about who owns something really serious, which usually ends up in like the high courts. But let's stick to Gaza just for the example because it's relevant to current news.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what Israel does, I would actually say that to some degree Israel is super soft and bends over backwards to appease people in the Middle East, including Gaza, but it has a knock-on effect on upsetting people in Jordan, upsetting people in Saudi Arabia, upsetting people in the UAE. Israel is bending over backwards to appease the Middle East, just like America has been for the last God knows how many decades. And prior to this event, and I think throughout most of the year, we had like one or two. we had one minor terrorist incident every 2 days. So like either like a stabbing with a knife, or someone ramming with the car, or someone getting out of the car with like a machine gun and shooting Israelis. We had these small incidents once every 2 days, and it was getting really ridiculous. And everyone was in our opinion, and I think, sorry, in my opinion, and I think the people in Israel as well, is that this isn't a way of protecting your people. So this particular event is where you just like massacre
Yeah, of course. This is
children
wholly
at a peace festival.
unjustifiable. Yeah.
Yeah, this is just like it how can you be safe in this? How can you feel safe leaving the house? How can you be safe growing kids till the age of 20 something in this country? It's very unnerving.
Yeah, to
But
be
I
like
think
ultra clear on my stance, like I totally get, like I have personal friends close to me whose parents are from Israel, and I used to think that their takes on, on like Palestinians were a lot crazier than I do nowadays. But like I totally get it, because if one side feels like they're if one side, like the Palestinians, feel like they're being hyper oppressed, right? They're probably going to do terrorist actions at a certain point. It just depends on like how bad that oppression is, right? And then if they do terrorist actions
I don't think the Palestinian
well, I'm just
I
giving
don't
like what
think
their point of view would be, and then like from the point of view of Israelis, if there are people doing terrorist actions and they're fucking targeting civilians on a regular basis, like you're saying, like it's totally reasonable for the Israelis to be like, you know what, these motherfuckers are trying to kill every single one of us. I don't have much concern for the plight of Palestinians when they're going around and fucking stabbing people and fucking, massacring fucking peace raves and shit like that. Like I have very little concern for how they feel about the situation when they're like constantly targeting people who are just going about their everyday lives. So like I understand why Israelis would be like, yeah, fuck Palestinians, fuck Palestine, fuck Hamas, fuck all these people. They're trying to fucking kill us. Like it's very understandable.
I would say this. I'll say a bit of a story. Back when I was in high school, we had a lot of suicide bombings, and suicide bombings either in like a large like disco for young kids, and we also have lots of suicide bombings like on buses. And at the time, our political landscape was very different than it is now. We did have a left. We had like a very strong left. So we had Bibi Netanyahu has the Likud party. It was also the Avoda party, and it was basically 50-50, and they were basically like Democrats and Republicans. They were fighting over a few more seats, and then they could build a majority. And we used to have a minor, like an extreme left party called Meretz, and at the time of the suicide bombings, their argument was, so basically, sorry, so let me just back up. So basically,
You're
someone
fine.
who kills themselves, they have nothing to live for. So what Meretz was saying, give them something to live for, like appease them in some way, or give them a lot of stuff, like material stuff, money, and so they have something to live for, and they won't blow themselves up. And it seemed rational when they were presenting it. But I think like after like when a few of these films and we just saw that it wasn't effective. These people are happy. At the time, it was with the suicide bomb. It just seemed like it was something it was their ambition. It was something they were aiming to do, to be a martyr, and also if a kid would do that, then their parents would get like, I don't know, like $5,000, $3,000 a month for the rest of their life or something, which is still a program that's around, and yeah, what I'm trying to say is it's not necessarily the case that it's oppression. I think that them saying that they're oppressed is to appeal to Europeans, white Europeans, that oh, please help us, please put pressure on the Israeli government to stop this and that. We just kid. So for example, Hamas now said that they want to talk about a truce. Like you just killed we have 900 dead and counting. By the latest count,
Wait, did they ask
there
for
were
a truce?
250. They asked for a truce. It's like a show. It's like
What the
it's just
fuck? I haven't heard that. That's fucking
yeah.
insane. You just did the most fucking like crazy attack on like Israeli soil since the fucking Yom Kippur War, and you're like, okay, well, look, takesies backsies, all right. We'll release the hostages, and you guys don't retaliate whatsoever. That's fucking
They
crazy.
won't release the hostages, but they do want a truce. They would
They want a
release
truce without releasing the. Okay, hold on.
they would do the truce, and then they want 1,000 prisoners for 5 hostages. Something I don't know if you know, but like I
I
think
haven't heard of this. I'll have to look at this after we're
when
done.
Bibi so Jewish people, the religious one in particular, they really care about the remains of people. It's very important to them. And when Bibi was Benjamin Netanyahu was first prime minister, he did a deal where he traded 400 Palestinian prisoners. So these are prisoners that did some sort of terrorist activity, and there's a special prison in Israel where they're kept. And he traded 400 of them for the remains of one Israeli soldier.
Mm-hmm. I've heard
So
about
basically,
this.
so you open the door for these. I mean, I would also like the hostages to be given back and alive, but you've just kind of set a precedent where Hamas is really building on these, or they really care about these hostages because they can use them as a shield in case Israel wants to bomb Gaza, and they can also they can just basically move them to Egypt or move them abroad and negotiate for years in the future to get an infinite number of prisoners or a very high ranking prisoner out of prison, because we've already opened the floodgates that we're open to any sort of negotiations.
I feel like okay, I have one last question for you, and then I'm going to make a request.
Okay.
The last question is, do you, like, off the top of your head, do you have an example besides the ones listed of Israel trying to like bend over backwards to appease Palestinians and like the broader Arab world? Like, let's say, like, specifically with Gaza, right? Like, outside of like prisoner exchanges or anything like that, like something that they are trying, like, are they trying to do something about the water situation, the the extreme poverty situation, etc.?
Well, I don't know about the extreme. So okay.
Well, I'm just
To
like
one,
listing off anything that I can think of. Like, if you have a different example, I'm fine with that. I'm not pressing
I
you.
would say that for the longest period of time when we had these like small incidents, they didn't do anything. That's already appeasing because it escalates the situation. If let's say, I think between the start of this year to like end of February, I think 23 people died to terrorist activities, but like small over time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if they said, well, okay, now we're going into Gaza, now we're doing these things, that was something that the leadership didn't want to do. And again, I'm not in Israel, so I don't
Sure.
really understand what's going on as well as people there. And I wasn't there when they had the recent very serious change in the legislative system, the judicial system, sorry. But if they would have gone into Gaza, or would have gone into the West Bank or Jenin and done some kind of activity, that would not be appeasing. That would take things seriously and stop attacking Israelis. We mean it this time and stuff like that. Because in the Middle East, I don't know if Americans are aware of this, but you kind of have to show force. You have to show strength. And if you don't show strength, then you're kind of really opening yourself up to being attacked. It's difficult to explain, but it's just the mentality of this region. So if, for example, Biden is now, I'm not getting into
It's fine.
an argument. If Biden shows weakness, or like even something that is perceived as weak, or let's say you left Afghanistan very badly. Let's say that is open season. That is like, wow, they're weak. There's a chink in their armor. They're not as strong as they used to be. It's flat out open season.
Gotcha.
But in terms of like the water and stuff, look, Israel gives electricity and water to Gaza. In terms of poverty, that again, it's there. it's their kind of quasi-state. They can do whatever they want, but in terms of poverty, like Israel does let them in and out and get them jobs. So I think there were periods of time. Obviously, so if there's a terrorist activity from Gaza and they shut the borders down, then people will suffer in Gaza because they won't have jobs, they won't be the ability to earn money. So ideally for those people, it's better if it's open. But yeah, we can't, like the government of Israel has to protect Israelis first, and that's what it's doing.
Gotcha. Okay, now for the request. I'm gonna keep on going over some of this stuff.
Okay.
Especially over because now I'm calling into question a lot of the narratives that I've heard about, I think that the IDF does some like crazy stuff, but I don't have any like specific examples to ask you about. So
Look, let me say this, right? With regards to the IDF, like I am sure that every once in a while there's a crazy soldier that does something bad. I'm not gonna dispute that. Or like a sniper that did something bad, or like by accident something happened. These things are thoroughly investigated. Or at the very least, when I was still in Israel, like if someone went out of line in the army, these things have no end of investigations. They will be put in prison. They will. There's countless examples of Israeli soldiers that did these things being put in prison.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if like something happened and a bullet strayed and killed some, that could very well be the case, and I would agree that it could have happened. But in general, it's a very restrained army.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go over some stuff. If you like, as long as you're like watching me, if there, I'll give you the perms in the Discord for this. If you see something that is on the video that you want to hop in and say like, hey, there's actually more context to this, I'm going to give you the reason why this happened, or this is actually complete bullshit. I gave you perms so that you can just like hop in and out of the VC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the conversation, buddy.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Catch you later. I guess I don't know as much about the alleged war crimes in Palestine, or at least I take them at face value most of the time. Maybe it is the case that I am taking too many of these things at face value, and Israel is actually not doing anything really that bad. Maybe it is the fact that it's just there's two competing narratives, and it's going to be really, really hard to find the midpoint. But maybe we should look into some of the Israel or the alleged Israel mistreatment of Palestinians that doesn't have to do with the IDF, because PZH is conceding the fact that, yeah, there's probably some people that do some bad things,